When it feels like you're in the grip of anxiety and it just won't let you go, can you actually talk yourself out of it? And if so, how? In this video, I'm going to teach you a couple of ideas that will give you more agency and control during those high anxiety moments and allow them to pass as quickly as possible. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Tim Box, mind coach and anxiety expert. For the last 13 years, I've been working one-to-one with clients to help them overcome all sorts of emotional and psychological issues, and in particular, helping them get control of anxiety. In today's video, I'm going to share with you two simple things that I often tell clients to help them calm their anxiety. Because whilst when you're in the grip of panic or intense anxiety, logic often goes out the window, there are things you can tell yourself that will ultimately help those times pass with minimal fuss. So we're often told that when you're feeling overwhelmed by panic or high anxiety, you can't simply think your way out of it. And there's a reason for this. It's because anxiety is an emotional response, not a logical one. Your brain has activated your sympathetic nervous system and thus triggered the fight or flight response. This is your subconscious taking control, making you hyper-focused on any potential threats around you. Now, when this happens, your brain becomes a bit of a one-way street where the conscious, logical part of your mind has little influence. You're not thinking clearly because your mind is focused solely on survival. The problem then becomes when we perceive the activation of that fight or flight mode to be an indicator of some mental or physical malfunction. Now the feelings themselves are triggering more of those feelings because it's the feelings that are perceived to be the threat. But here's the thing, even though it feels like we're in danger, our mind is simply trying to protect us. It's doing its job, just maybe a bit too aggressively for our liking. So with that in mind, there are things we can tell ourselves that potentially mitigate and interrupt the fear cycle when we're feeling highly anxious. In fact, there are two simple things you can remind yourself of to help bring your mind and body back to a place of safety. The first thing to remind yourself is that this feeling is natural. That fight or flight response you're feeling, it's not a malfunction. In fact, it's a perfectly natural process. Even though when anxiety is high, you might not think it necessary or appropriate for the situation, it's important to remember that it isn't anything other than a completely natural and healthy response. It's not a sign that something is medically wrong, it's a sign that you're alive and you care. The fact you're able to feel highly anxious or fearful is proof that your mind is trying to keep you safe. It's gearing up to protect you from whatever it perceives as a threat. And that's good news, even though sometimes it might not feel like it. So instead of resisting that anxious feeling, remind yourself that nobody ever died of an anxiety or panic attack. Anxiety cannot kill you. It's not going to cause any damage, and you're not malfunctioning. It would be much more alarming if we were unable to feel anxious, because then we'd be one emotion short of the full set. That really would be a problem. Whilst it's one thing saying anxiety isn't a malfunction, it will often feel like it is. After all, when we can't visibly perceive anything worthy of a fight or flight response, which, let's face it, in this day and age we don't encounter very often, it might feel like something clearly is going wrong. In those instances, it's important to remember a very simple maxim that we often need to apply to anxiety. The way it feels is not the way it is. When we're in a high anxiety state, our mind's job is to search for danger. So everything around us is perceived through the lens of potential threat. Thus, a lot of what is going on might feel threatening, but that doesn't mean it actually is. When it comes to anxious feelings, thoughts, and sensations, we often interpret these as signs of something far more catastrophic than what's actually happening. A few examples of this: well, we might feel like we're dying, when of course we're actually not. Anxiety or panic, no matter how intense, can't hurt, damage, or kill us. It might feel like we're malfunctioning in some way, but as we've already said, anxiety is a healthy and natural response. In fact, the fact that we're feeling these things is a sign that our body is working just fine. Also, at times, we might fear that something about our thoughts means we're going mad. But again, that's not the case. Those racing thoughts are actually your mind doing what it's supposed to be doing, which is keeping you alert to possible danger. Your discomfort with these thoughts is more likely a sign that you're perfectly sane. Another common feeling is the perception that this will never end, when in fact, of course, it always does. Panic and high anxiety are temporary. In fact, when we stop resisting the feelings and reacting to them with fear, they fade away all on their own. Remember, what you're experiencing is your body's way of responding to a perceived threat, not an actual one. The sensations feel overwhelming, but they're not telling the full truth about what's going on. And this doesn't mean your mind is lying to you, it's just being a bit overprotective right now. So the next time you're feeling excessively anxious, remind yourself of these two simple truths. Firstly, this feeling is natural. What's happening is a normal part of your body's defense system, and it won't hurt you. Secondly, the way it feels is not the way it is. Anxiety may feel like a crisis, but that's not an accurate reflection of reality. Now, if this seems like an overly simplistic way of looking at things, good. That means it'll be no problem to remember these simple truths in the future. Because the more we can make these ideas a part of our inherent understanding of our own responses, the easier it becomes to break free from the cycle of panic and anxiety. If you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might benefit from these reminders. And if you're looking for more in-depth advice on how to manage your anxiety, consider joining the membership area of the channel. You'll get access to exclusive resources and my weekly members live stream, where we dive deeper into anxiety and mental health topics. Thanks for watching. I'm Tim Box. Always remember, be kind to your mind. I'll see you next time.